Well, WorkSafe BC is trying to crack the whip on employers over the dangerous impact of asbestos. 44 workers have died across BC in the past year due to exposure, making it the #1 cause of death in the construction industry. Now, Tina Lovgreen is joining us now with more on what WorkSafe is asking for. Exactly. Tina.
Well, Andrew, there are already rules in place when it comes to properly disposing asbestos. Problem is, not everyone is following them. Some contractors have been cutting corners, and that's because there is a higher cost associated with the proper disposal of the material. Now, WorkSafe wants contractors and workers to do their job right, identify the substance, wear proper protective gear, and take the necessary precautions. And that could include sealing off the area so it doesn't contaminate the rest of the building and put people's health and safety at risk.
Asbestos fibers themselves are so small you can't see them. Okay, they don't smell, they don't taste funny, you can't tell you're breathing them in. And because the fibers are so small, when they're released into the air, they can float around for a long time. And so they can go into different areas of a home or whatever the case may be.
Now, proper handling of asbestos is important because it's so deadly. Roughly 2,000 people die in Canada every year from related diseases like cancers and lung disease. The federal government says it is planning to ban the material in Canada by next year, but the substance can be found in more than 3,000 materials used in homes built before 1990. That's stuff like drywall and tiles, and it can be released into the air when those areas are drilled, sawed into, or broken up during renovations or demolitions. And that's something we see a lot of here in Vancouver.
So WorkSafe is asking employers to follow the rules in place that are in place already. What about those who don't or who aren't following the rules?
Well, that's where WorkSafe BC comes in, and they say they're doing more inspections than before. They've had to, issue close to 500 orders. In some cases, that's meant contractors just have to do a bit of a cleanup. In other cases, they've had to stop working entirely. WorkSafe has also been handing out penalties. In one case, a contractor was hit with $1 million in fines.
Wow. But then I suppose people have to pay those fines, which is a whole other fight. And so I'm curious, even beyond penalties, what's being done?
That's right. And not always do they pay the penalties, which is the problem. So right now, labor advocates say if a company doesn't have assets or chooses not to pay, they'll have to battle it out in court. But that, of course, takes time. So they're calling for a provincial licensing program. That way, if a contractor applies for, let's say, a demolition or a renovation permit, they'll have to prove they have the proper gear and training to handle asbestos safely.
You can't get a demolition permit, you can't get a renovation permit from any municipality or city in BC unless you have a license. There's the tag. There's what makes sure that we can do some enforcement without hiring 1,000 inspectors at WorkSafe.
Now, I'm told there are discussions underway about that program. Meantime, homeowners are encouraged to ask contractors to do an asbestos inspection and to actually ask to see the report. They can also turn to WorkSafe BC's website, where they have a database of companies that are facing asbestos-related penalties. There are also plenty of other tips on the site for dealing with the substance.
Okay, thanks very much, Tina.
You're welcome.